Envision this situation. The skies above the Persian Gulf are active. Thousands of premier American paratroopers are airborne, traveling toward one of the most unstable hotspots on the globe. Down below, nearly 2,000 commercial ships are stuck, unable to transit, trapped on both sides of a channel that typically carries 1/5 of the entire planet's oil supply. Oil costs have surpassed $100 a barrel. A worldwide energy emergency is developing in real time. And right at the heart of all of it, a small island just 7.7 square miles in area, with a population of 20,000 residents, most of them petroleum workers. An island that controls the key to Iran's economy, to the Strait of Hormuz, and potentially to the conclusion of an entire conflict. This is the account of Operation Epic Fury, the 82nd Airborne Division, and the most significant deployment of American ground troops in a generation. If you're not subscribed to Bradley Madden yet, now is the moment. Press that subscribe button and activate notifications, because what's unfolding right now in the Persian Gulf is progressing rapidly, and you're going to want to remain informed of it. Let's begin from the start. On February 28, 2026, U.S. and Israeli troops initiated what would become recognized as Operation Epic Fury, a comprehensive military operation targeting Iran's defense infrastructure. What ensued was a swift and devastating sequence of aerial attacks that tore through rocket launch facilities, maritime bases, and military headquarters across Iran. But even as Iran's traditional military was being dismantled, Tehran still had one option left to deploy, and it deployed it immediately: the Strait of Hormuz. This lone channel, roughly 100 miles long and barely 21 miles wide at its most narrow section, is the lifeline of the worldwide energy market. Through it travels approximately 20% of the world's petroleum and liquefied natural gas every single day. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, all of them rely on the strait to ship their resources to the rest of the planet. Japan, South Korea, China, India, all of them rely on it to maintain their economies functioning. When Iran closed it down, the repercussions spread across every market on the globe, and what a closure it has been. Before Operation Epic Fury started, approximately 135 to 140 ships traversed the Strait of Hormuz every single day. As documented by analytics company Kpler, only 138 ships, including 87 petroleum and gas carriers, managed to transit during the entire month of March. That's a nearly unbelievable decline in movement, down to 5 or 6 vessels per day, a 95% reduction in passage. And as Al Jazeera has verified, nearly 2,000 ships are now simply waiting, stationed in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, hoping for a secure crossing that may never arrive. The International Maritime Organization has verified that number. Its Secretary General, Arsenio Dominguez, labeling the accumulation unprecedented. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas has projected what this signifies for the worldwide economy. According to their analysis, a complete shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz has the capacity to push West Texas Intermediate oil costs to $98 per barrel and remove a remarkable 2.9 percentage points off worldwide real GDP expansion in a single quarter. In reality, we've already witnessed oil costs surge beyond that number. Brent crude contracts have been exchanging above $100 a barrel, with some increases reaching as elevated as $165. International Energy Agency Director Fatih Birol has cautioned that the existing supply shortage, estimated at 11 million barrels per day, is greater than both of the 1970s petroleum crises combined. Let that register. Greater than the 1973 oil restriction. Greater than the 1979 Iranian upheaval. We are experiencing the biggest geopolitically caused energy interruption in contemporary history. And now, in the midst of all of this, the United States has just accomplished something landmark. On March 24th, the Pentagon declared the deployment of the 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East. According to the Washington Post, formal orders were transmitted to the division's Fort Bragg headquarters and to personnel within the 1st Brigade Combat Team. CNN has verified that the initial deployment includes the division's commanding general, Major General Brandon Gruesome, his leadership team, and a battalion of approximately 800 troops. The complete group drawn from the 82nd Immediate Response Force could eventually total between 2,000 and 3,000 members, together with 2 Marine Expeditionary units already heading over. The combined number of additional U.S. troops heading toward the Persian Gulf now reaches somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 soldiers, joining the approximately 50,000 American military members already positioned in the wider Middle East. This is not a standard movement. This is a declaration. And to comprehend just how significant a declaration it is, you need to comprehend what the 82nd Airborne Division truly is. The 82nd Airborne is the United States Army's leading rapid deployment unit. Retired Lieutenant General Sean McFarland, speaking to NPR, explained it directly. It has unrivaled strategic mobility. It can mobilize anywhere around the globe on brief notice by aircraft and can arrive there in a matter of hours or days if summoned. The division's immediate response force, the particular component being deployed, is built to mobilize anywhere on the planet within 18 hours of receiving its directives. 18 hours, that is not an error. The element exists to reach a situation before the situation has time to consolidate. And the hint to what this element can accomplish is right in its title. This is a forced entry division equipped to parachute into hostile ground, capture airstrips, and establish terrain for subsequent forces. As Stars and Stripes documents within the immediate response force, there are subclassifications, IRB-1 and IRC-1, a battalion and a company, respectively, who function as the initial deployers for mobilization at the element level. What the U.S. military has constructed here is a unit designed to be the leading edge, quick, powerful, versatile, and right now it is traveling to the Persian Gulf. But as you'll soon learn, the 82nd Airborne isn't traveling there solo. And where it's heading and what it might accomplish when it arrives, there could transform everything about how this confrontation concludes. Now, before we explore the strategic thinking here, we want to take a second to acknowledge the sponsor of today's content. We'll be right back with you in just a moment. Now, back to what may be the most important military concentration in the Persian Gulf since Operation Desert Storm. Let's discuss Kharg Island. If you haven't learned of Kharg Island before this content, you're about to realize why it is suddenly the most tactically significant piece of territory on the globe. The island rests approximately 20 miles off the Iranian shore in the Persian Gulf, well to the northwest of the Strait of Hormuz itself. It spans just 7.7 square miles. You could traverse it on foot in under 2 hours. Its resident population is approximately 20,000 individuals, and yet this small piece of territory controls a remarkable 90% of all the petroleum that Iran ships to the globe. In 2024, the most current year for which we have validated numbers, Iran produced approximately $43 billion from petroleum transactions. That amount, according to GIS analyses, represented 57% of Iran's total shipping income for the year. Remove Kharg Island and you remove more than half of Iran's earnings from global commerce. You don't just damage the government, you cripple it. President Donald Trump has already indicated that the U.S. understands exactly how significant Kharg Island is. In comments delivered during the closing week of March, Trump declared directly that the U.S. could eliminate Kharg Island at any moment. Whether that was a bargaining approach or a real operational indication remains to be determined. But the reality that he mentioned it at all reveals you where American strategic focus is centered. Here's where it becomes even more compelling. Kharg Island doesn't just endanger Iran's income channels. It endangers Iran's capacity to exercise financial influence entirely. The petroleum laborers on that island manage a hub that constitutes the single most essential junction in Iran's complete shipping framework. You do not reconstruct that type of complex overnight. If it were to become inactive, whether through American control, precision attacks, or even disruption, Iran would encounter a financial collapse from which restoration would require years. And now the U.S. Army is dispatching its quickest ground mobilization unit directly toward the Persian Gulf. U.S. Marine Colonel Mark Cancian, now a senior consultant with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, told Axios that the 82nd Airborne has the capacity to endanger objectives in the Gulf area without having to directly pass through the hazardous strait. Kharg Island falls precisely into that operational territory, far enough from the strait itself to avoid the worst of Iran's protective measures there, but near enough to Iran's shore, and financially important enough to make seizing it one of the most effective leverage actions available to the United States. But, and this is essential, seizing Kharg Island is not straightforward, not even for a unit as proficient as the 82nd Airborne. Cancian himself told Axios that the division categorized as light infantry would be exposed while descending, and if confronted by armor. The 82nd mobilizes quickly, but it mobilizes light. In the opening stage of any mission, there are no heavy tanks, no armored formations, just paratroopers in their gear. If Iran has preserved or strengthened armored elements on Kharg Island since the March 13th aerial attacks that struck the island's defense infrastructure, the 82nd could encounter a perilous condition on the surface. There are other difficulties too. Kharg Island is approximately 140 miles from the closest major American installation in Kuwait City. Resupply would be challenging. The island would be within distance of Iran's surviving rocket capabilities. While approximately 75% of Iran's rocket firing positions have been eliminated, as of the most current intelligence, portable and dispersed platforms remain functional. The variety that can be transported out, launched, and concealed again before a counterstrike can reach them. On a compact island, even a small number of effective rocket impacts could prove catastrophic to American troops. Alex Plitzis, a specialist with the Atlantic Council, was direct about what the existing force makeup can and cannot achieve. He shared on X, according to Stars and Stripes, that force is not adequate for a major incursion, nor to control a single city. It indicates limited focused ops only. So the unit being gathered is not a unit for a comprehensive invasion of Iran. It is, as military commentator Michael Eisenstadt explained to Fox News, intended to amplify psychological pressure on Iran and facilitate initiatives to reopen the Strait of Hormuz so it can once again be utilized by all nations. Focused, accurate, but with tremendous implied ramifications. And that's where the two Marine Expeditionary units factor in. Prior to the 82nd Airborne's mobilization announcement, the U.S. had already sent two Marine Expeditionary units toward the Persian Gulf. The USS Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group, including 3 combat ships, the 31st MEU, and roughly 2,200 Marines and sailors, is presently heading from Okinawa, Japan. The USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group, transporting the 11th MEU out of San Diego, has been redirected from the Indo-Pacific and is additionally proceeding to the area. According to Al Jazeera, the USS Tripoli is a 261-meter, 45,000-ton America-class amphibious assault vessel capable of functioning as a light aircraft carrier for F-35B fighters while concurrently enabling amphibious missions. Combined, the two MEU formations bring approximately 4,500 Marines and sailors to the arena, along with armored trucks, rotorcraft, combat aircraft, and cannons. As Time magazine observes, MEUs are frequently the initial ground troops to reach a conflict and are expressly constructed to merge infantry with substantial firepower in a self-sufficient formation. In brief, they address precisely the capability shortcomings that the 82nd encounters when it comes to opposed landings and mechanized opposition. The pairing of the 82nd Airborne and two Marine Expeditionary units doesn't merely produce an impressive-sounding contingent on paper, it produces a truly effective expeditionary formation for capturing and maintaining an objective like Kharg Island. The MEUs deliver the seaborne assault capability and mechanized backing. The 82nd delivers the swift airborne insertion option and tactical adaptability. Combined, they provide U.S. leaders multiple pathways to any specified target. But you might still be questioning, even if the U.S. can capture Kharg Island, is it truly worth the danger? Let's reason through what's actually in jeopardy on the Strait of Hormuz right now. Iran is not merely obstructing the channel in the conventional manner. It has converted the strait into something more troubling, a checkpoint. As documented by Lloyd's List Intelligence, a premier maritime research organization, since mid-March, Iran has been diverting ships from the standard internationally established shipping corridors to an alternate pathway closer to the Iranian shoreline. Vessels are obligated to undergo screening by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which inspects nationality, registration, freight, and personnel before allowing or refusing authorization to transit. As Bloomberg documented on March 26, the Iranian legislature is now vigorously developing regulation that would officially establish charges on ships requesting transit through the Strait of Hormuz. The semi-official Fars news service referenced a representative saying the proposal would be completed within days and would formally establish Iran's authority of the strait. Iranian legislature representative Alahuddin Boroujerdi confirmed to Iran International that ships have already been assessed up to $2 million per crossing. According to Lloyd's List, at least 2 ships have rendered that charge in yuan, with one crossing arranged through a Chinese maritime logistics firm serving as a middleman. Let that figure resonate, $2 million per vessel to traverse through what international regulations classify as an open international strait. The Gulf Cooperation Council's Secretary General, Jassim Mohammed al-Budaiwi, became the first senior official to openly charge Iran of demanding for safe transit, describing it precisely what it is. And as Karen Young, a senior research fellow at Columbia University Center on Global Energy Policy, told CNBC, the GCC nations, including the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Oman, are not going to tolerate and not going to accept an Iranian taxation system on the strait. This is Iran's wager. Dominate the strait, draw income from it, leverage it as a bargaining instrument, and for weeks it has been succeeding. But it is also generating pressure on the United States from every angle. Every country that relies on Persian Gulf resources, and that is most of the leading economies of Asia, is observing Washington and wondering what it is going to accomplish. Petroleum leaders and commentators are now cautioning that the Strait of Hormuz needs to be cleared by mid-April, or the delivery interruption will intensify dramatically. According to CNBC, geopolitical analyst Marco Papic of BCA Research calculates the planet has already forfeited between 4.5 and 5 million barrels a day of petroleum from the conflict, approximately 5% of worldwide output. He cautions that figure will multiply by mid-April, becoming the biggest loss of crude delivery in history. The countdown is advancing. Make sure you're subscribed to Bradley Madden so you don't miss our continuing reporting of this evolving circumstance. Press that bell symbol to be alerted the instant we publish a new report. Now, into the matter of negotiations and why it's more intricate than it initially seems. As all of this military concentration has been occurring, the Trump administration has been concurrently communicating and battling its way through an unclear diplomatic terrain. According to AP News, the United States has conveyed a 15-point truce proposal to Iran, utilizing Pakistan as a go-between. President Trump affirmed on March 24th that ensuring Iran possesses no nuclear armaments remains a fundamental American priority, and that the government had pledged to constructing no nuclear instruments. Trump also declared publicly that Iran was eager to reach an accord. At the same gathering where he delivered those comments, Trump informed the crowd that Iran was negotiating, by the way, and they desire to reach an accord so desperately, but they're reluctant to acknowledge it because they suspect they'll be eliminated by their own citizens. Iran's answer: absolute rejection. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi declared clearly on state broadcasting that his administration has not participated in discussions to conclude the conflict and has no intention to do so. The U.S. had attempted to relay communications through other countries, he stated, but that is not a dialogue nor a bargaining session. Iranian military representative Ibrahim Jabari went beyond, delivering a declaration that was nothing short of rebellious. Speaking on behalf of the consolidated leadership of Iran's military forces, Jabari allegedly ridiculed the American stance, questioning, "Has the extent of your internal confusion reached the point of you bargaining with yourself?" He continued, "Don't label your defeat an accord." The BBC has additionally documented that many in Iran consider the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, is fundamentally opposed to bargaining with the United States, irrespective of how much of its framework has been demolished. The IRGC's philosophical dedication to its core tenets is, according to that evaluation, more powerful than its battlefield defeats. To them, engaging with Washington is not an indication of pragmatism. It is a betrayal. So, who is accurate? Is the U.S. communicating with Iran or not? The reality may be that both situations are occurring simultaneously and in separate sections of the government. Iran's defense and governmental leadership is not a unified bloc. Numerous levels of authority have been eliminated since Operation Epic Fury commenced. Communication within a government that has endured that degree of upheaval is unlikely to be fluid. It is fully conceivable and perhaps probable that some elements within the Iranian administration are investigating options with the United States, while others sincerely have no awareness those exchanges are occurring. And into that disorder, Trump may intentionally be introducing more disorder. The mobilization of thousands of soldiers, the public warnings, the discussion of agreements, all of it may be calculated to keep the Iranian government disoriented, uncertain of what is approaching next, and under peak psychological strain. This is the uncertainty of conflict unfolding in real time on a global platform. What we understand is this: as the diplomatic chatter occupies the broadcasts, American soldiers keep advancing. The 82nd Airborne's mobilization directives were composed and transmitted. The 31st MEU is voyaging from Okinawa. The 11th MEU has departed San Diego. The U.S. is assembling a contingent in the Persian Gulf that can carry out a spectrum of scenarios from targeted operations to the capture of vital ground, and it is accomplishing so with systematic, purposeful pace. Former Pentagon researcher Michael Eisenstadt, speaking to Fox News, also highlighted a worry that extends beyond the immediate operational circumstance. Even if significant combat missions begin to decrease, he cautioned, we could witness a conclusion to significant combat missions, with activity transitioning to insurgent-style surprise assaults in the Gulf and other ambiguous activities by Iran. He made the analogy to the decade of management that followed the 1991 Gulf War with Iraq. Prevailing in the initial military effort is one matter. Handling the consequences is another undertaking entirely. Iran, he observed, has actually embraced reports of the 82nd mobilization because the existence of ground soldiers on or near Iranian land creates fresh chances for Iran to inflict casualties on U.S. troops, portable rocket platforms, drone formations, fast boat provocation, insurgent missions. All of these become more practical when American personnel are physically on the surface within proximity. And then there is Iran's most radical option, its extreme contingency. And I don't suggest nuclear arms. I suggest the scenario that, confronted with the likelihood of losing Kharg Island, Iran follows what Saddam Hussein executed in Kuwait during the Gulf War and simply destroys its own petroleum facilities to the ground, demolishes the very asset the U.S. is approaching to seize, refuses Washington the tactical reward while driving its own economy into a prolonged depression. It would be a devastating act of self-destruction. But governments under existential strain do not consistently make logical financial decisions. The IRGC has already shown its readiness to withstand tremendous damage. Would it breach that threshold? No one can declare with certainty, but the prospect cannot be overlooked. Here's where it all connects. The United States is carrying out what seems to be a concurrent pressure approach across numerous fronts at once. Diplomatically, it is conveying truce offers and generating public ambiguity about the condition of discussions. Economically, it is focusing on Kharg Island, the motor of Iran's shipping income, as the supreme pressure point. Militarily, it is mobilizing a contingent equipped to carry out a spectrum of missions from precision operations to complete occupation, while continuing to perform aerial campaigns that are methodically eliminating Iran's surviving rocket infrastructure. As of recent intelligence, roughly 75% of Iran's rocket-firing positions have been targeted. The bunker-penetrating munitions that U.S. troops delivered on subterranean rocket facilities along the Hormuz shoreline shortly before the 82nd mobilization was declared may themselves have been sufficient to begin altering the dynamic. Every firing position eliminated is one fewer danger to American troops trying to maintain a foothold on Kharg Island. Every day that passes with U.S. aerial resources monitoring the Iranian shore is another day that Iran's capacity to counter a surface mission is further weakened. At the same time, the financial toll of the Hormuz obstruction is becoming unmanageable, not just for the worldwide economy, but for Iran itself. The government's complete monetary framework depends on petroleum earnings that cannot move while the strait is immobilized. Iran's legislature may be composing checkpoint rules, but that regulation cannot produce $43 billion a year in petroleum shipping earnings. It cannot substitute the financial base that Kharg Island supplies. And every day that Brent crude remains above $100 a barrel, the pressure on international authorities, including those nominally supportive of Tehran, to insist upon a settlement grows. Something is going to fracture. The only question is what? Is the U.S. about to position soldiers on Kharg Island? Is the diplomatic channel going to yield a surprising accord before that occurs? Will Iran deteriorate from within under the combined burden of military destruction and financial suffocation? Or will this circumstance intensify in trajectories that nobody has completely foreseen? The 82nd Airborne is deploying. 2 Marine Expeditionary units are converging on the Persian Gulf. Petroleum costs are above $100 a barrel. Nearly 2,000 vessels are marooned on both sides of the planet's most critical channel. And somewhere in Tehran, the IRGC is monitoring and evaluating its next action. What we can declare with assurance is this: the United States has transmitted an unambiguous message. It is prepared for every possibility, up to and including placing American soldiers on Iranian territory. It is constructing the capability for that mission by the day, and it has positioned the responsibility directly in Iran's possession. The Iranian government's reaction to that message will determine what transpires next. Whether that reaction arrives in the form of a negotiated settlement, a military clash, or something else completely. Something landmark may be about to transpire in the Persian Gulf, and when it does, Bradley Madden will be here to analyze it for you. We'll keep you informed as this circumstance progresses. If you want to guarantee you don't miss a single report on Operation Epic Fury, from the troop mobilizations to the diplomatic secret channels to the petroleum market consequences, subscribe to Bradley Madden right now. Press the subscribe button, activate notifications, and remain with us. The coming few weeks in the Persian Gulf may shape the direction of worldwide geopolitics for years to follow, and thanks for watching.